This is Charlotte Talks. I'm Mike Collins. I think it's safe to say that Kathy Reichs is Charlotte's most famous forensic anthropologist and this town's most prolific and successful author. When we first met on this show, it was to talk about her first novel, Deja Dead. We decided to invite her to the program because, well, she was teaching forensic anthropology at UNC Charlotte and also working in that profession in Montreal. We thought that was interesting. Oh, and much of her first novel was set in that city and here in Charlotte. Cute, we thought. But at the time, we thought of having her on the show. It was going to be like a one-off, but she kept coming back.
I do that.
Because she keeps writing books, each one more successful than the previous one, and all based on a character she called Temperance Brennan, who was, in every way, Kathy's alter ego. As the books piled up, Hollywood noticed, and suddenly there was a TV series called Bones based on the books. It ran for 12 seasons. Plus, as of today, she has written, I think I'm right about this, 24 books in her Tempe Brennan series, the latest of which, A Conspiracy of Bones, will go on sale next week. And so this morning we invited her back again, not because she needs promotion, but because we like her. You've been a friend of the show for a very long time, and she joins us now in our Spirit Square studio. Good morning.
Good morning.
Let me apologize to folks who may have wanted to come out and see you today at 7th Street Market. We intended to do the show from there, but in the overabundance of caution that we have to have in this coronavirus era, we made a decision this morning to move it to our private confines here, and thank you for being flexible. Let me add that given the TV series and the 24 Temperance Brennan novels and the 8 young adult novels that you co-write or co-wrote with your son Brendan, and with the novel that we talked about, I think the last time you were here, which had nothing to do with Tempe Brennan, that you've got to be the richest author in Charlotte. Too.
I don't know about that.
When do you sleep? Seriously, when do you sleep?
Well, I'm down now to just writing one Temperance Brennan novel a year.
Yeah.
There was a point where I was doing a young adult novel, a screenplay for the show, and an adult novel.
How?
Well, yeah, that got to be a bit much.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we're back down to one book a year.
Wow. So prior to your first novel, as I just said, Deja Dead, you had written some textbooks.
Yes, they were not big sellers.
Well, of course not. But your primary job was teaching and working here and in Montreal as a forensic anthropologist. And when you wrote that first novel, was it an experiment? Was it a lark? You just want to try something different, something new to see if it stuck to the wall? Why did you do it?
All of the above. I had made full professor at the university, so I was free to do whatever I wanted to do. And I had just worked on a serial murder case, so I had a good idea for a story. And I was kind of sniffing that forensic science was in the air. It was the mid-'90s.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's still in the air.
It's still in the air, and I don't think as much as it was. You know, it really got hot.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the OJ trial on for the next 10, 15, 20.
What do you think our fascination with it is? Because I remember like doctor shows from the 1960s where you never got to see operations. Now you watch a doctor show and there's blood everywhere and you're pulling organs out of bodies. And it's the same that's true with detective shows and police procedural shows. Back in the old days, you didn't see anything. Now you see everything. And forensic anthropology gets pretty gruesome.
Not as gruesome as pathology. I mean, we don't saw off the top of the head and take out the brain and that kind of thing. We work with nice, neat bones.
Well,
Although
sometimes.
The opening scenes to each of our episodes on bones were a bit graphic.
Yes, but you, as a forensic anthropologist, do not work with neat bones.
Just neat bones. We also work with decomposed, mummified, burned, mutilated, dismembered.
Lovely.
Yes.
So, were you a reader? I'm just curious about it. I've ever asked you this question. Were you a reader of fiction, a big reader of fiction, prior to writing your first novel?
Yes, and that was really my only training. I have no training in writing. So,
Really?
yeah, no,
It's
I
a study.
avoided, when I avoided the literature classes. I wanted to be over in the biology lab and the zoology and physiology. So the way I wrote the book is I tried to write the kind of book I like to read.
Because we'll talk about this later, but the way you write, your writing style is really interesting and compelling. It's compelling. That's why I think why people have gravitated toward your books. You did a TEDx talk in Ottawa where you told the story of how you transitioned from being an anthropologist to a forensic anthropologist, because you didn't always deal with cadavers. You started out.
Well, I started out in bioarchaeology,
Okay.
and my degree is in bioarchaeology, which is ancient bones. So, yeah. So that's what I was doing. I was archaeological
And
questions.
some detectives came to you and wanted you to get involved in helping them to solve the murder of a little girl.
That is correct.
And you said you agreed reluctantly. That was your word, to help them. Why were you reluctant?
Well, I hadn't done it prior to that. I'd never testified in court. I really had, and back then, nobody really recognized the difference. If you knew about bones, well, then you could do either one. Well, that's not true. There's a real process of being qualified, first of all, to do forensics. You have to sit for a board certification exam. So there's a whole area of training that you don't have as an archaeologist. Even though you know about bones, you don't know about gunshot wounds and about testifying in court and all kinds of, evidence collection according to police protocol. So I didn't know any of that, but I agreed to help them on the case.
Yeah. And you are a board certified
Yes, I
forensic
subsequently.
anthropologist.
Yeah.
Which has led to all of this. That test, the day you sat for that exam.
Oh, it was a bear.
But that opens your life to a whole series of things that would not have happened in the absence of that.
I think that's
Things.
true.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't think a book about for a bioarchaeologist would have had quite the appeal.
Now, we've talked about this before, but a lot of our listeners are new, and they're newcomers, and they don't know that you live here, and they don't know, perhaps they knew your books. I mean, maybe they picked up Deja Dead and some of the other books that occasionally take us to Charleston or to Charlotte, and they wondered why. And how could this person know so much about the map of Charlotte, how the streets all change names, and Sharon Lane dead ends into Sharon Road? Why? They don't understand that. You have lived here for a long time, from Chicago, but you've lived here for a long time.
Yeah, don't ask me how long.
Okay.
Mike. A long, long time.
And when your first book came
Decades.
out, suddenly you became this New York Times and international bestseller.
Yes.
Yes. How
Yes.
surprising was that? No training as a fiction writer. You'd written textbooks, and suddenly you are this international success. Later on to be this internationally successful television person.
Well, it was a surprise. When you write your first novel, you just hope somebody will publish it, and then you hope somebody will buy it and read it and like it. I wasn't really looking beyond that.
Really? And when it became a success, suddenly, out of the blue, are you suddenly locked into something that it was going to be a one-off for you? I mean, are you suddenly locked in? You've realized, I got to follow this up.
Well, when I created the character, I did have in mind that it could be a series. Yeah. And then you tell yourself, get real, just write the book and see if anybody wants to publish it. But I did, every now and then think about this could be a series of books. I never thought about a television series, but a series of books.
And you based Temperance Brennan. I kind of tiptoed around this 27 years ago when we started.
It wasn't quite that long ago.
How she really is your alter ego, because you worked, I guess you still do, but you worked here, you worked in Montreal. Mm-hmm. She does too. She's a forensic anthropologist. On the TV show, you went as far as having the Temperance Brennan character, I'm trying to figure this out, write books
Yes.
in which her alter ego is somebody named Kathy Reichs.
Yeah, her main character is, yeah.
So was that intentional? I mean, you thought that was a good device?
Yeah, it was kind of meta. Actually, our showrunner, Hart Hansen, came up with that idea where we did this flip around that her main character is a forensic anthropologist named Kathy Reichs. Mm-hmm. And we thought it would be kind of an inside joke for my readers.
Well, it is.
And we did several episodes about that.
How did you come to work in both Charlotte and Montreal?
Oh, I went there on a national faculty exchange, which is a program for university professors where you change places with someone at another institution for a year. And that's kind of a funny story. I had just taken an introductory class in French, French 101. Je m'appelle Kathy. Very humbling with sitting there with my students. Instead of lunch hour, I would go do that. So this offer came through a faculty meeting for NFE, National Faculty Exchange, in Montreal. And I thought, well, mais oui, I speak French. I can do this. So I went to Montreal for a year to teach at McGill and Concordia. And during that time, the forensic lab there wanted someone who could work in French and was board certified.
Kathy Reichs is our guest. She has a brand new book. It comes out next week, and there will be a book signing next week, next Tuesday at 7 o'clock at Park Road Books. The book is called A Conspiracy of Bones, and we're coming right back at Charlotte Talks on WFAE.
Members and Signature Healthcare, whose Uptown office offers 24/7 access to concierge healthcare, including in-office services like acute care, travel medicine, and executive physicals. SignatureHealthcare.org. And from Couch Mountain, presenting a 200-acre community with 34 home sites and mountain views. Public viewing on Saturday, March 28th. More at CouchMountainNC.com. If you have a minute or two right now, can you please give us a call during our spring membership campaign with your contribution in any amount at 704-549-9000 or WFAE.org, taking just a minute or two away from the conversation with Kathy Reichs. We're going to get back to the conversation in just a moment, but coming to you, doing what we have to do, asking you to do your part right now during our annual spring membership campaign. I'm Marshall Terry. Joining me in the studio right now is Lisa Worf. Hey, Lisa.
Hey, Marshall. And so this was supposed to be an event at 7th Street Market, but out of an abundance of caution, we moved it inside to Spirit Square. However, you can watch Facebook Live and see the conversation going on. We are coming to you, as Marshall said, at this time, a extremely busy time, and to ask for your contribution to make sure that the news and the programming that you rely on this station continues to be strong. It's 704-549-9000, or you can contribute at WFAE.org.
Got lots of thank you gifts that we'd love to send your way, including 2 tickets to see Kai Rizdal when he is in town at a WFAE event coming up in May. Extremely limited quantities of these tickets. We will send you a pair of them if you can become a sustaining member of WFAE at the $45 a month level. Got lots of other great thank you gifts if you can maybe not be quite as generous as $45 a month. We hope that you can, though, for all the public radio listening that you do. And, of course, a gift in any amount today is going to get you your 4 raffle entries for our $17,000 home improvement raffle. Now, this is really cool, Lisa. We've been mentioning this all week. We're nicknaming it the Spring Cha-Ching Raffle. $12,000 worth of gift cards to Lowe's, and then a $5,000 gift card for custom furniture from the fine folks at Carolina Urban Lumber. One lucky person is going to win that. It could be you when you make your contribution right now, because you'll get 4 raffle entries. And, of course, if you're a sustaining member of WFAE, you automatically get your 1 entry today. But if you can afford to up your contribution right now, we will give you 4 additional raffle entries is our way of saying thank you when you call 704-549-9000 or WFAE.org.
There are lots of ways to say thank you. You rely on this station, especially think of through the last couple weeks as we try to navigate through this coronavirus, as we look at the primaries. This is your go-to station. And if that does indeed describe you, then it's time to contribute. 704-549-9000 or contribute to WFAE.org. And keep the station strong. Keep the programming strong. And we come to you in many different ways, online and podcasts, that give you not just the what, but the why and the context behind it. 704-549-9000 is how you can support this journalism, or WFAE.org.
Our goal this hour is to hear from 15 people who are tuning in right now to this conversation on Charlotte Talks. 15 public radio fans who want to become public radio supporters with their financial contributions. If you are one of them listening right now, we need to hear from you at 704-549-9000 or WFAE.org. Have not heard the phone ring once yet this hour, or the web ping indicating that somebody's made a web pledge. That is a little concerning. It's very important that we stay on track with these hourly goals so the overall membership campaign stays on track. Can we hear from you right now? Are you one of the 15 people listening right now who's going to give us a call at 704-549-9000 or WFAE.org?
In times of uncertainty, you turn to WFAE. And at this time, we are also turning to you to ensure that this programming and this news source stays strong. 704-549-9000 or contribute at WFAE.org. And thank you so much to that person and all of you who have already pledged and are just about to.
Thanks.
It's Charlotte Talks on Listener Funded, 90.7 WFAE and 90.3 WFHE. I'm Mike Collins. Kathy Reichs is our guest. Kathy Reichs has written 24 Tempe Brennan books now, and of course she's responsible for the Bones TV series because it was based on her Temperance Brennan character. Her latest book comes out next Tuesday, A Conspiracy of Bones, a new Temperance Brennan novel, which takes place both here and in Montreal again. In your early days when you were first starting out and you were still already a full-time forensic anthropologist, as we said, you worked in Montreal. You worked for the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner in North Carolina and in the Laboratoire des Sciences Judiciaires et des Médecins Légaux.
Very nicely done.
Thank you. For the province of Quebec, as they say. And you continued to go and be called on throughout this writing experience for other tragedies, sites of plane crashes and Ground Zero and places like that. Do you still do that?
Not so much.
Do you miss it?
Sometimes I do, and it was always a dilemma. If I'd be called into the lab, I'd think, well, I don't have time for this. I'm writing, teaching. And then if I wasn't called into the lab, I'd think, well, why aren't they calling me into the lab? So there was no pleasing me, I guess.
So are all the books that you've written where Temperance Brennan is the character based on work you have done, or is it also based on works that colleagues have done or cases that you know about because you're in the business? Yeah,
both. The earlier books are based more specifically on cases or experiences. Some of the later ones I've drawn on a broader field. I attend the American Academy of Forensic Sciences every year. I read our journals, Journal of Forensic Sciences. We're really clever with titles in there. So I do draw ideas from that as well. Anytime I see something really interesting, I think that's a great idea. And I actually keep a file on future story ideas.
Really? How long does it take for something? Because you not only have to have an idea, you have to know the science behind what's going to happen, which you probably already do. But then you've got to figure out how to make a story out of it, how to utilize the characters that you've created in the settings. Because Temperance Brennan lives in this condominium project called Sharon
Hall.
Sharon Hall.
Yeah.
Which I don't think exists, but it could.
Oh, it actually does. It's Carroll Hall, which is it's over by Queen's University. I made up her because that's an old manor with condos attached to it, and then there is an outbuilding, which was the coach house. Well, I made up an annex, and that's where she lives on the grounds of, so it's a real place.
Okay, so you have to weave all this together, the science, you have to create the story, you have to figure out how to use the characters. How long does it take for a story to incubate? How much rewriting do you have to do? Do you still find that you go down dead ends as every author does, or does it, now that you've done it so many times, is it fairly easy to do? I guess?
Yeah, that's about 2 or 3 questions, right?
I'm famous for that.
I start, let me unwrap that. I start with a case or an experience or something, an idea, and then I ask myself, well, okay, what if this happened, and what if that happened, and what if that happened? This book begins with the discovery of a faceless corpse. Mm-hmm. The corpse has no face, no hands, no teeth. It's been scavenged by feral hogs because it's North Carolina. That came from a case I worked on near Ottawa in Canada of a woman who was murdered, and her murderer deposited her body out in a wooded area, and it was scavenged by bears. So I started with a person who's scavenged by bears, and then I spin it off into, okay, well, what if it was in North Carolina? It wouldn't be bears necessarily, unless it was in the mountains. How about feral hogs? And then you just say, well, what if this, what if this, what if this? So I start with a core idea, just a nugget. How do I write? I create an outline, I'm not, as authors, we talk about pantsers and planners, people who plan their books in detail and people who go by the seat of their pants. I'm more of a pantser because I do a little bit of an outline. I do maybe the first 10 chapters, and then I know where it's going.
Right.
But I don't plot out chapter by chapter by chapter. And then
That's actually fascinating because your books are page turners, and one chapter ends and it logically begins. The action picks up sometimes at a different place, but it's all connected chapter to chapter, and you don't plan that out. That's amazing to me.
well, yeah, I mean, I just don't write out an outline.
Okay.
I plan it out in my head. My son, Brendan, who writes young adult novels, he does total planning. He even has little colored cards, and he puts them up on a big whiteboard and that sort of thing. I don't do that. But I'm a very linear writer. I'll start with chapter 1 and then do chapter 2 and then do chapter 3. My daughter, who's also a writer, doesn't. If she's in a good mood, she writes the love scene. And if she's in a blue mood, she writes the death scene. And that's just so wrong. I can't do that. So
I'm just curious, since your son and you work together on some novels, and you work completely differently, how does it work? Do you drive each other crazy?
that was when did those not that was 5 or 6, 7 years ago. We did 6 of the Virals,
Right.
young adult Virals novels, which is Tori Brennan, Temperance Brennan's 14-year-old great niece. And that was his first experience. He's a lawyer, and he hated being a lawyer and wanted to get out of being a lawyer, so he proposed that we write the series together. So he was brand new at it. So he hadn't really established his technique yet. He then went on to get a Master of Fine Arts in writing. So he now very much has his own technique. But back then, we really didn't have a real different approach.
So both of you have, I guess all three of you, your daughter and your son, have come to this with some success, some great success, in fact, with no training. And your son went and got the training after he'd already written the books.
He did, yes. They're both lawyers who didn't, yeah. I spent $1 billion sending them to law school,
Exactly.
and neither one practices.
So Tempe and you are often called on to be experts to help other people with things because of your scientific knowledge. And how often do you have to call on experts in the course of writing these books to flesh out things that perhaps are not necessarily based in forensic anthropology, but are based in police work?
Well, not only police work, and you're absolutely right. I do call on usually colleagues. I'm really lucky about that. I know somebody right down the hall who's in DNA or who's in blood spatter pattern analysis, whatever. So I do call on them a lot. The book I'm writing now, which will be the next Temperance Brennan book, is going to have to do with the human genome. So I'm working with a molecular biologist, geneticist, every single, because I don't want to just do bones in every book. I try to bring in a different forensic science in each book. And I'm not an expert in all of those different fields. So I do a lot of research.
But you are an expert in your field, and I'm wondering if you think that that's why these books have been so successful, why you've been so successful, why the TV show was so successful, because you really know, and therefore your character really knows what's going on here.
Hopefully it gives them a certain authenticity that I'm an actual practicing forensic scientist.
Do you think you could have written this if you weren't?
Not as well. I could have written it badly. And when I read other books where they put in forensic science, it's usually a little grating.
Well, I was going to ask you, because there are other people who do this. We won't name names, but there are other people who do this, and I'm wondering if, when you read their works, maybe you don't, if you get the heebie-jeebies because the science is wrong.
There are some authors who get the science pretty good because they do a lot of research. Where they annoy me is when they then imply that they are actually a trained forensic scientist,
Right.
when they're not, wearing a lab coat and that sort of thing.
And the TV show, they came to you, I take it, the Fox network came to you and wanted to do this show, and it seemed right to you at the time to do it. You'd thought about doing it, but nothing ever came that seemed right to you, if I understand this correctly.
Right.
And they didn't come to you to write this, although you wrote some episodes. They didn't come to you to direct it. They didn't come to you necessarily to produce it, although you ended up being a producer. They came to get permission to use the character,
Right.
to adapt the character for television, and then to use you as their scientific consultant.
Yes.
You held their feet to the fire on that. It was accurate.
We tried,
Except for the lab set.
Well, I've never been in a lab that's quite as razzle dazzle as Tempe's lab.
It's television. Come
Yes,
on.
it's the magic of television.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, we in the writers' room we use the word plausible a lot. It had to be at least plausible. Now we did push the envelope for some things, but if it was a science that just didn't exist or a technique that just didn't exist, that's when I'd say no. We
Right.
can't do that.
But you helped them because all the bones that they used on that show were acrylic. They were not
Yes,
real.
that
so
is
we
true.
don't have to get creeped out by what you're looking at. It's not real. It's television. But all the science was as authentic as it could be without going over the deep end and teaching a science class.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
But you're kind of teaching science in these books, it seems to me, because people who know nothing about forensic anthropology, who know nothing about the kind of things that you do as a professional, are learning.
Well, I hope so, and that's why I feel like I need to get it correct.
Mm-hmm.
You have to keep it the scientific part. You have to keep it brief, and I feel compelled. You have to keep it correct, but you also have to keep it completely jargon-free.
Mm-hmm.
We can't rely on all this special vocabulary that we use amongst ourselves as experts. It's almost like talking to a jury. You don't want to dumb it down, but you want to make it understandable, and you have to make it entertaining
Right.
in writing fiction as well.
A lot of temperance, I've read articles about your friend saying that her sense of humor is your sense of humor. Is it?
Yeah, she can be a bit what's the word I can use on the radio? Yeah, she has a cutting
Yes.
and somewhat sarcastic sense of humor.
I like that. I like that, and I like that in her character.
And that's why I went with the producers that approached me, that we ended up with Hart Hansen and Barry Josephson, is they had the same vision of wanting to put humor into the show. Mm-hmm. And that's hard to do, to put humor into a book or a show, an episode that has to do with violent death every single time.
Right.
So,
Well, I think you'd have to have a sense of humor about this, or you couldn't do it. You couldn't go to work every day.
well, yeah.
I mean, you'd have to.
They coined the term crimedy for us. So we were the first crimedy that went on.
So a lot of her characteristics come from you. A lot of her, not everything. A lot of the cases that she investigates and the science that she uses to investigate these cases come from your experience. And in this new book, A Conspiracy of Bones, she is recovering from neurosurgery following an aneurysm. And I think we can talk about this only because you put it in the book. I mean, you put a kind of a tag on the end of the book,
Yes.
a letter to your readers.
Yes.
Because you missed a year.
I did.
You missed it because you promised to put out a new book every year, and you missed a year, and that was because you were diagnosed with an unruptured cerebral aneurysm. And you write in the back of the book, quote, "Bottom line, I have a brain oddity and headaches, so our heroine also has the dastardly duo. You say you don't worry about your aneurysm. Tempe, a bit more."
Yeah.
You don't worry?
Well, no.
You still have it?
I don't even think. Well, yeah, but they put these little like coils in there that just blocks it off. So, no, I don't even think about it.
Explain what for people who may not
It's
know
just
what
a
this is.
little bubble that goes off the side of an artery. So you're fine. It can be there forever. It may have been there since I was born. We just serendipitously happened to find it while we were looking for something else. So it's sealed off. So you don't have to worry about it rupturing because it doesn't connect to the main artery anymore. So Tempe, it's a little bit more on her mind. No pun intended, I guess. And, one of the themes of the book is what's real and what's not real. And that's on two levels. Mm-hmm. One is Tempe's own, can she rely on her own perceptions? Because she's having some migraine headaches and things. Can she really rely on what's in her own head?
Because there's a scene in the book where she is looking out her window at her condo, and she sees a shadowy figure in the distance. And of course, because she's Tempe Brennan, she doesn't just call 911 and go to bed. She puts on her track shoes and goes out and tracks him around the property. And he's kind of elusive. And for a while, as a reader, you don't know whether she's seeing things or whether the guy is just, it's dark and he's fading in and out. Is that what you're talking about? She
or
can't
if
rely
he's
on
even
her?
there at all.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
Do you have that problem?
No. I mean, that's where I go, well, what if this, what if that, and spin it into fiction. But also on another level, we live in an age of what's real and what's not real.
We do?
We're inundated with either misinformation or disinformation.
Okay.
So there's a theme of that in this book as well.
Okay. Kathy Reichs is our guest. Her book is called A Conspiracy of Bones. It's not available yet. It will be available next Tuesday, and she's signing it at Park Road Books next Tuesday from 7 to 8:30. We're coming right back at Charlotte Talks on WFAE.
Carbon emissions in the Carolinas by 36% since 2005 and committed to continuing to lower emissions and increase renewable energy. More at dukeenergy.com/getmorefacts. And from Carolina Pest Management, protecting homes and families since 1939, offering termite, mosquito, and botanical-based pest control options for 81 years. Details at carolinapest.com. This is our spring membership campaign, and it would be really nice if we could hear from you right now with a pledge in any amount at 704-549-9000 or WFAE.org. We have a goal this hour of hearing from 15 people, 9 left to go in order to hit that goal. I'm Marshall Terry, and joining me in the studio right now is Lisa Worf. Hello, Lisa.
Hey, Marshall. So in times of uncertainty, you turn to WFAE. And now we're turning to ask you for a contribution to keep this station strong. 704-549-9000 is the number to call, or WFAE.org. And when you call, we have many ways to say thank you, including a chance to have 4 chances to enter the $17,000 home improvement raffle. We're calling that the Spring Cha-Ching raffle. It includes a $12 Lowe's gift card and also a $5,000 gift card for custom furniture from Carolina Urban Lumber. 704-549-9000 is the number to call, or WFAE.org. You can contribute very easily there. 704-549-9000.
We want to thank good people like Nathan in Charlotte, Alton in Lincolnton, Katja in Cornelius, Marilyn and Herbert in Charlotte, Jamie in Charlotte, and Roger in Shelby, all making their contributions this hour in support of all the public radio listening they do, all getting their 4 raffle entries for that $17,000 home improvement raffle as well. You could be next, getting your raffle entries and more immediately helping us with our hourly goal of hearing from 15 people. Still need to hear from 9 more people in order to get there, since Lisa and I have come on in the last minute or so, have not heard the phone ring, have not heard anybody make a contribution online. That is a bit concerning. We need to stay on track with these hourly goals so the overall fundraising campaign is on track. So will you help us right now? 704-549-9000 or WFAE.org. We've got lots of thank you gifts. Check them out at WFAE.org. We promise it's only going to take a minute or 2 of your time to make your contribution.
Think about all the times you've turned to Charlotte Talks. Yesterday, of course, we had the health show looking specifically at coronavirus and precautions that you can take, ways to deal with this. Our news department is working on a variety of different stories to bring to you what kind of impact this has, whether it's business, whether it's schools and education. You rely on us, and now we're relying on you. 704-549-9000 or contribute at WFAE.org. And of course, we are trying to hear from 15 people this hour. And right now we have 9 more to go. So won't you be the next one to call to register that this is an important resource for you and for this community?
We know we have the numbers. There are a lot more than 15 people listening right now. There are many more than 9 people listening right now. We are talking to you. Can you make a $10 or $20 a month contribution right now for all the public radio listening that you do? If you're a fan of Charlotte Talks, we're going back to the conversation in just a moment. If you're a fan of this program and you have yet to give this membership campaign, if you have yet to give to the station at all, it's a great time to join us. You're going to feel great about what you've done. Every time you tune in to Charlotte Talks, you'll know that you made that program possible with your contribution right now at 704-549-9000 or WFAE.org. Can you afford to do $10 or $20 a month to support Charlotte Talks? If you can, we need to hear from you. You're going to get your 4 raffle entries for that $17,000 home improvement raffle. When we hear from you, we're going to go back to the conversation here in just a moment, but the phone line is still open. Make your call, 704-549-9000 or WFAE.
It's Charlotte Talks on WFAE and WFHE. I'm Mike Collins. A quick news update before we continue our conversation with Kathy Reichs. North Carolina health officials say the number of coronavirus cases in the state has risen to 12. New cases have been reported in Johnston and Forsyth counties. Governor Cooper says he will be announcing new measures and recommendations later today. And meanwhile, stocks, as expected, plunged at the opening bell, and trading has been suspended yet again. The Dow and S&P dropped more than 7% in early trading. You'll recall the so-called circuit breaker was triggered last week. Trading will resume, we think, in a few moments. And you can stay with WFAE and NPR throughout the day for the latest on both the stock market and the coronavirus outbreak. Kathy Reichs is with us. She is the author of A Conspiracy of Bones. That's her new Temperance Brennan novel, which comes out next week. Tempry, again in this book, goes rogue.
She definitely goes rogue in this book because there's a new medical examiner in charge in Charlotte, and she and
Doesn't like her.
They have history, and she has banned Tempe from the medical examiner office. So Tempe, for various reasons, gets committed to finding an identity for this corpse, this faceless corpse that's discovered at the outset, but she has to work outside the system. She almost has to MacGyver it and call on her colleagues and rely on her own resources.
I mean, you're so meticulous with the science. I'm just curious how often this happens. There's politics in every profession and politics in every office that you work in. And I have worked in a place where we were all, the employees, actively working against the management. Because we thought they were on the wrong track, and they were no longer there after a certain amount of time. But I'm curious, in the world that Tempe revolves in and that you revolve in, if going rogue is a thing that ever happens. For instance, I know that you would never go out and do research in the field because everything you uncover is potential evidence.
Right.
But she does it all the time.
Right. Well, she's forced to do it in this case. Now, she does work with with Skinny Slidell, who is the local homicide detective with whom she's worked many, many cases. Skinny is now retired in this case and working for the cold case unit, doing volunteer work. So she's able to maneuver through Skinny and get some of the resources of the Charlotte PD.
Which happens a lot in fiction, and it happens a lot on television, where, and I'm sure it happens in real life, where you have relationships and they'll do some favors under the table for you.
Exactly.
Does it really happen, though, in your world?
Well, I've never been exiled, so I've never had to
You may be after this.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I'm out. She's having to call on colleagues, and they're very supportive of her. But she's really worried about that because she's on the outs, and she doesn't want their careers to be jeopardized either.
Talk about your writing style, because it's economical, it's staccato, lots of short sentences, clipped, expressive. I'm reading this like you may have written it, because it's lots of short sentences, period, clipped, period, expressive, period, official, period, matter of fact, period, even scientific, period. I just did it.
Okay.
Is that a literary choice? Does it come from your scientific mind? And a scientific mind will, here's the fact. It is what it is. Let's move on.
I guess I don't like a style that's very flowery. I don't like adverbs for some reason. So if it's an adverb, get it out of there is kind of my style. So I'm also doing dialogue for cops and scientists, and they tend to speak more matter-of-factly, I guess.
Well, actually, when I read, I think it's in the first or second chapter, I read this thing and I thought, this is like, nobody remembers this but me, but it reads like Dragnet.
Okay.
I'm joking.
I remember
Friday.
that.
Just the facts, man.
Yeah. Sergeant Friday.
Yeah.
Sergeant? Yeah.
I think he was Sergeant
I think
Friday.
he was a sergeant.
But that's what it reads like. Very
Yeah, well, you want it to move along. I write forensic thrillers. They're good old-fashioned murder mysteries, but the solution is driven by science. But at the end, and you want the science to be accurate, but at the end, the main point is to write a good story.
And I think that drives, you're right, it drives the story. It gives her character, it gives you insight into how she thinks and how she does her job, I think. And it also makes it a quick, interesting, page-turning read.
Well, good. That's what I try to do.
How did you do that? Have you always been able to do that, or has that developed over time in the course of 24 books?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I'd have to go back. I think my writing has improved. I do know that when I go back to Déjà Dead or Death du Jour, some of those earlier ones, to check a fact, sometimes I cringe at my writing. I used way too many cliches or too many either similes or metaphors.
Editors didn't tell you that at the time?
No.
And you're an international bestseller, so what are they going to say?
Well, yeah, my editing has been fairly gentle. When and my writing style is that I constantly massage what I'm writing, constantly as I go, sentence by sentence, so that when I turn in the manuscript, it's really pretty polished by the time I turn it in.
And yet, you told me you wrote this book a year ago, this new book. Mm-hmm. It's just coming out next Tuesday. It's taken a year for the people who make whatever you write into a book that you can actually hold in your hand and carry around. It's taken them a year to get it ready. What's that process? Why?
Well, even after I turn it in, you still go through multiple levels of editing. You go through line editing and copy editing.
Who's doing the editing? You or somebody
editors.
else? And then they send it to you for approval.
And then they send it back to me for approval, yeah. And
drive me mad.
Well, yeah, it's like your thesis. Once you've written it, you don't ever want to see it again, right? So, yeah, editing can be a bit tedious.
Yeah. Wow. You mentioned your death. What's it called? Death du jour.
Déjà Dead.
Déjà Dead. A lot of the books early in this had titles like that. And the first three had titles that incorporated French words, because Deadly Decisions had an accent aigu over the E, so it was Deadly Décision.
Yes, it was.
But today, ever since the Bones TV series, you've come up with titles like Devil Bones, Spider Bones, Bones Are Forever, Swamp Bones, now A Conspiracy of Bones. This is all marketing? Is that what this is?
Yeah, it was suggested to me that when Bones went on the air that maybe, I did some early ones with the title, with Bare Bones, I think, was number 5 or 6 or something. So that was before the show. But once the show came on air, my publisher did suggest it might be good marketing to have Bones incorporated. And the series came to be known as the Bones books, the Bones series.
Is it a challenge? Do you come up with the titles, or does the publisher?
Yeah,
I
usually do.
Is it a challenge to do it?
Yeah, sometimes I know right away from the beginning, and sometimes I don't. Sometimes I have to really think about it and work it. And my family does this thing when I'm writing a book where they all throw out silly titles. Let's put them. And I think and then we award a prize who has the best one. So my very favorite was suggested by my daughter Courtney, who's the only non-writer. She suggested, I forget which book it was, but she suggested, it was the one where it opens where they've discovered a body in the basement of a pizza parlor. So she suggested Bony Pepperoni for that.
She's a nurse, right?
Yes, she's the nurse, yes.
That wasn't based on the Hillary Clinton allegation, was it?
No, it was not. No, it was way before that.
So you're writing a new book right now, even though this hasn't even come out yet.
Right.
What's it called?
I don't have a title yet.
Okay.
But I usually have a working folder where I give it a title for the folder. So it's called Genome. Because it's going to have...
G-Bone.
G-Bone. Could do that.
At the height of the TV series popularity, we talked about how you and the producers kind of changed TV Tempe from how she is in the book. She's younger on television, and then she is in the book. And so the TV show was kind of a precursor to the Temperance Brennan that your readers knew. And I'm curious, obviously that TV show exposed a whole bunch of people to your books that didn't know about those books. And it also exposed your readers to this new Tempe. how did those two groups of people react to each version of your character?
Yeah, I think of TV Tempe and book Tempe, and as you say, they're different. TV Tempe's in Washington D.C. rather than Charlotte and Montreal. At first, there was a little bit of resistance, I think, from my readers. Like, this is different. This isn't our Tempe. But I think eventually people got used to it, and they just thought of it as like it's just more of Tempe. It's a prequel, perhaps, of Tempe.
Yeah. So because you acted as a consultant on that show, you acted as a producer on that show, you also wrote several scripts on that show.
Yes.
When you sat down to write a TV script with a slightly different Tempe, was it easy to compartmentalize who she was on television versus who you have been writing about for years in these books? Go ahead.
Excuse me, sorry.
Allergies.
It's not coronavirus.
That's right, it's allergies.
It's allergies.
Let's hope.
Yes, it was easy because of that difference, because of the difference in age, the difference in location, difference in personality.
Yes, I'll give you a chance to recuperate. She's having trouble because of allergies here. During the series, Kathy, you took a break from for a book called Two Nights, which we talked about when you were here several years ago. It had a different female protagonist. She was not a forensic anthropologist, but she did involve herself in some seamy situations and with some seamy other characters. Was that your idea to get away from Tempe for a while, the publisher's idea? Something you wanted to do, or just thought it was a good idea since the TV show was running, the books were running, maybe I can show that I can stretch myself a little bit here?
It was the publisher's idea.
Okay. Did you like that idea?
It was, at first, not. I was resistant to it, but they really wanted me to do a standalone, which I did, and people wanted Tempe.
Yes.
So,
Well, her character was called Sunday Night.
yes, it was.
And she was not like, she wasn't Tempe, but she was. I remember reading that, and this is not a criticism because it was an interesting book. It was a fun read, but I kept thinking, I missed the forensic anthropology, and there would be forensic anthropology of Tempe with the lead character.
Yeah, Sunday Night is kind of an independent character. She carried a gun, which Tempe never did.
Never did.
She just had a tougher personality, and it was just a real different book, written on two levels, and you didn't really know who the other portions of the book, from whose point of view they were.
The TV show ran a remarkable run. It was 12 years, 246 episodes. It'll be in syndication till we're all long gone. It's the longest scripted drama in the history of the Fox television network. You've written now these 24 books. The TV show wrapped 3 years ago. Will there come a time in your mind where you will wrap the books?
Oh, probably. Yeah, definitely.
Do you know where it's going? Do you know how she will go out?
No.
Do you want to know?
Well, eventually, I'm going to have to write
You have to figure it out.
Yeah.
One of the things that you said about working with your son on your young adult series, which also feature a kind of a forensic anthropology wannabe, the great niece, that one of the things that you said you've done with that series is that you've given young girls a chance to see how science works. And you once gave out some suggestions for young people wanting to become a forensic anthropologist. You said, study hard science, learn an actual area of expertise, biology, chemistry, microbiology. Do not major in a broad spectrum forensics degree. It will teach you about the field, but give you no saleable skill. Any advice for somebody who wants to become a writer?
Oh, my goodness. I would give the opposite advice. I would say get some training in writing. And I'm probably very unpopular with universities who have general forensic science degrees for having said that, but I still believe that. But for writing, I would say definitely get some training and learn how to do it and go into a program and join a writer's group and all of those things I never did.
Which made you highly successful. Kathy Reichs, her new book is A Conspiracy of Bones. It comes out next Tuesday. She'll be signing it at Park Roads Books next Tuesday evening at 7 o'clock, from 7 to 8:30. Thank you for being back with us.
Thank you, and I apologize for
Okay. It's okay. Thanks.